Welcome to the battlefield, my warriors. This is Dark Son of Legend, and I'm going to be reacting to the trailer for Five Nights at Freddy's 3 today. I am going to be showing footage from the trailer up in this corner. I'm not going to be showing it in its entirety, though, so if you want to see the full trailer with audio, go and check the link down in the description. Other than that, I'm just going to be talking about what I thought about it. And before I go into what I thought about the trailer, this video is going to be kind of also a reflection video on the series as a whole, so I hope you guys are interested in hearing that. If not, I might add like a link or something to with a time frame within the video that I start talking about the third one. But the first thing I gotta say is that between the time of Five Nights at Freddy's 1 till now, so much has changed. Scott Cawthon has made a great, fantastic series. I got introduced to the first one when I was watching Markiplier's gameplay channel. I was watching his channel for a good year and a half, and then he started picking up that game, and I was completely immersed in it. After a few episodes of watching him play it, I realized that the animatronics were all programmed to try to counter certain playstyles so that everybody could play fairly, get scared, and not cheat very easily. So what I did was I went to go research exactly the specifics of the mechanics because I was so intrigued, and through that way I stumbled onto the then secret lore about the child murders that happened to be written on the posters between all the nights of the first game, and that was before pretty much the entire internet found out about it, and before it was a central focal point of the second game's storyline. But when I found out about that and I went to go watch Markiplier's episodes to finishing the game, it added such a deeper meaning and more depth for me. Like the atmosphere was so much more terrifying. The animatronics were so much more meaningful and fierce to me, knowing what happened to them and why they were doing what they were doing. It was fantastic. I am a sucker for lore, especially when it is in a good game. And even though the lore was short and simple, it was so well executed. And between now and the coming up third one, so much has been improved, not just in the lore, but in the gameplay and the visuals and the sound and the atmosphere, everything. A lot of people tend to bag on Scott for releasing the game so quickly, but honestly, you know, regardless of whether people like the game or not, they have to look at the games and they have to realize that it is made in quality. There's a lot of quality there. I don't know how long he spent making the first game, but that was very quality, and it was new. I'm pretty sure there were games kind of like it before, but it was just so well made. And then the second one, I know it came out at least a half a year after the first one, maybe even a full year. I don't really know. But you know, there was a lot of changes there. The visuals were upgraded, the sound was upgraded, the atmosphere, and he also changed up the gameplay a lot. That's the real big thing there too. I don't know if he reused any of the assets of the first game, which would have made the process much faster. But regardless of whether he did or didn't, he made the decision to keep the basic formula the same, which made and he had spent so much time mastering making that formula that, you know, he probably knew what direction he wanted to take the story too. So all of that made the process of creating and finishing the game faster. But at the same time, he made so many improvements. He expanded upon the lore in a very shocking and interesting way. He added to the gameplay by doing stuff that I actually didn't expect. I mean, for one thing, the no doors. The other thing, that you have power on for the entire facility, but you only have a certain amount of flashlight. 10 animatronics versus the 4 in the first one. 10 of them. And then other stuff like the challenge modes. There's I think what, 10 different challenges in that game. But regardless, he did all of that. He decided to keep with the formula, but he upgraded everything game mechanic wise and also gameplay wise. Not to mention that all the games, if I'm not mistaken, are what, $10 ish on Steam. So you know, they're not very long games to begin with. If you play through the games and don't die, you'll probably finish the game in an hour and a half maybe. And if you do die, which it's supposed to be hard enough to make you die a few times, it'll take you maybe 2 to 4 hours. Plus there's the replay value there with the challenge modes, with the customized AI, and it's just a good game, and short at that, that if somebody wants to go back and replay the levels or show a friend, they can easily do that, and in short bursts too. So there's plenty of replay value there, and even for a short game, you know, $10 is worth that kind of content. So, you know, I guess there's really no point in me saying this other than trying to defend what people are criticizing about the game. But the major point of even mentioning all that was just trying to say how much things have changed from the first until now, how much hasn't been improved, and just what a great success it's been, not only for Scott himself, but for the fans too, like the fans that enjoy playing it, the fans that enjoy eating up the lore and speculating and all this kind of stuff. It's really awesome. And now to get into the actual third trailer, or the trailer for the third game. So basically there were two things that were revealed, one through the trailer, the other one through the Steam Greenlight page, and I will be including a link to the Greenlight page if you want to check it out. I'm going to be talking about the Greenlight page first because that's most important. The Greenlight page talked about the premise of the story, and that is that it is set 30 years in the future after the events of Five Nights at Freddy's 1. At this point, everybody has pretty much forgotten about the murders and about the supposed killer animatronics, and they think that it's pretty much like an urban legend at this point, almost. But this other company stepped in and bought Freddy Fazbear Entertainment, but instead of making another restaurant chain and trying to get the success that the others didn't find, they actually turned it into a legitimate horror franchise. They wanted people to they wanted to emphasize the horror part of it. They wanted people to get scared. They wanted people to remember all this. Like, you know, they just wanted to cash in on the great scandals behind the two restaurants and the other two games. And you're going to be the security guard working in that place. And I'm sure you guys realize how many doors that opens. I gotta say that when I was first waiting for Five Nights at Freddy's 3, because all of us knew it was coming, even before it was officially confirmed. We all knew after the second one that there was going to be at least one more. And I was expecting to take the prequel route again. I was expecting it to follow in the footsteps of Five Nights at Freddy's 2. And the reason for that is because the first game, in timeline chronology, is the last thing to happen as far as the robots are concerned. Or at least before the third one was. The second game was basically the events leading up to the Bite of 87, which was alluded to in the first game. And the second game alluded to a restaurant that was opened before the one in the second game. So I expected them to go back to that one, and for that to be like the origin story as to what actually happened to make the robots haunted. Because pretty much all of us thought in the first game, once we realized the secret lore about the murders, we thought that that was what made them what they were. We thought that the children dying, that their souls were haunting the robots, but that happened after the Five Nights at Freddy's 2 happened. That apparently happened either, I think, during the events, well, not during the events of the second game, but around that time at the very least, or around the time of the second game. So obviously something happened to the robots before that to make them haunted. And that's what I thought they were going to explore. Am I disappointed that they're not going to do that? I'm not going to really say disappointed, because one, they could still potentially explore that in ways that we wouldn't have even imagined. Like, just have this whole huge conspiracy theory that's 30 years in the making that still gets addressed somehow throughout the story. But regardless of whether they do or do not address that, the premise itself of being in the future and being a completely different franchise, trying to build off of what previously only we as the players, as the security guards, knew about, that's just exciting, man. That's really exciting. I always pictured Five Nights at Freddy's as being a perfect trilogy. And even though I have nothing against any spin-offs or any numbers past 3 for any kind of movies or TV shows or games that go past that, as long as they do it well, I have this very strong belief that if you're going to make any franchise in multiple installments before you wrap it all up, I feel like 3 is the perfect number. I mean, you don't have to make it 3. If you can make it in 2, then fine, but if you're going to continue past 2, I feel like 3 is the perfect cap off. And I feel that way for Five Nights at Freddy's 3. just from the amount of lore that was introduced in the first game and in the second game, and the pace at which they were revealed in both games, throughout each night through the security guard that was talking to you over the phone. I just felt very, very, I felt very strongly, especially after Five Nights at Freddy's 2, that there was only room for one more. That there was room for a little bit more lore to be introduced, and then for the unanswered questions to be answered, if Scott actually meant for them to be answered, which could potentially upset some and then make others happy. It's the people that want answers, kind of like me. Even though I enjoy speculation, I do want finality in this. You know, if questions aren't answered, then people like me will probably be a little bit upset. But the people that like to speculate and like to have things open for them to do their own interpretations, they'll be happy, really happy. But either way, my point is that regardless of whether they explore the unanswered questions, unanswered plot points of the first two games, this is really, really exciting and interesting for the series. And either way, I think this should be the last one. The last thing I wanted to talk about is the new animatronic. And you can see his pretty face right here. Yeah, pretty creepy. But I don't know if I mentioned this already, but they decided to make this animatronic from the parts of all of the robots up until now. The original robots from 1, the toy robots from 2, they took a whole bunch of different parts from pretty much every robot, or at least most of the robots, and made them all into this one thing. And it's really freaky. And there's also a little bit of speculation going around concerning this little guy. The two theories that I come across most often so far has been that it's either a new version of Bonnie or that it's a new version of Freddy. And I see legitimate reasoning behind both, but I have a different theory altogether about that. First of all, people say it's Bonnie because it looks like Bonnie, and honestly, you know, looking at this thing, it looks a lot like Bonnie. It looks a lot more like Bonnie than the other animatronics do. People are like saying like the long ears and everything, and even the nose and everything looks very much like Bonnie. And people are saying it's probably Bonnie. It's either like a rustic Bonnie, like really, really worn down compared to even as run down as they were in the second game, or maybe even a golden Bonnie, kind of like the golden Freddy counterpart in the first two games. Both of which seem very interesting and very have some legitimate space to work with there, but I don't feel like that's the case. I also don't feel like it's the case with it being Freddy. People are saying it's Freddy because, you know, Golden Freddy's already been established and it looks golden, so it's probably him. People are also saying it's probably Freddy because this is Five Nights at Freddy's. Like, Five Nights at Freddy's, you know, the title character. You can't have the title of the game without the title character and there somehow being a real big impact in the game. Not to mention that the teaser trailer actually says he will come back. He always comes back. You know, so there has to be him somewhere. Both of which, like I said, feels legitimate to me, but at the same time, they said that they made a new robot with all different robot parts. So I'm pretty sure it's just like a Frankenstein hybrid. I'm not sure if Scott wants us to consider this new thing as Bonnie or Freddy or any one entity, whether it's a new entity or, well, whether it's an old entity or not. I don't really know how much it'll be related to Freddy, you know what I mean? Like, I don't know if he wants us to actually consider him a new Freddy, kind of like how there was the toy Freddy in the second one, or even like the even more creepy and rundown version of Freddy in the second one. I don't really know. I don't know if he wants us to consider a new one completely, or Freddy at heart, but still kind of like Frankensteinish. But it's very interesting to me. But the thing that's actually the most interesting and the most concerning is that there's supposed to be only this one animatronic in the entire game. Now that could be extremely exciting, and I do trust that Scott knows what he's doing, because I'm sure this probably came to mind. But if there's only one animatronic, as short as the game is, you're going to have to put a lot of work into this thing. You're going to have to make this thing freaking terrifying. You're going to have to make this thing like Nemesis from Resident Evil 3. You know, it's going to have to drive our entire experience. There's going to have to be a whole bunch of different jump scares for this one thing, and not just the jump scares. Like even when it's roaming the hallways, it's going to have to be terrifying. There's going to have to be like different camera angles that we can see that makes it look so terrifying. There's going to have to be some kind of gimmick to it that makes it somewhat random and unpredictable to the point where we're still frantically looking for it and not being able to keep an eye on it at all times. You know, there's got to be something in there that's going to instill dread and panic and stress to us, and that's going to be very hard to pull off with one enemy. So I hope that it turns out well. I just don't know if it will. I guess we'll find out. But yeah, those are my entire thoughts on this new trailer and the series as a whole so far. This video has been going on a very long time. I did not expect it to be even that long. I apologize. I hope you guys enjoyed my commentary and that, you know, you felt like I had something important to say as far as that's concerned. So, if you liked the video, leave a comment, like, and subscribe, and especially if you have your own theories or your own thoughts and reflections about the series as a whole, go ahead and put that down in the comments too. But until then, I'm just going to have to see you guys next time.